Welcome to the 8th chapter of Raising Rebeca Books, the birth of a publishing house. This is the audio story of me, Rebecca Seitz, building a traditional, royalty-paying publishing house from the ground up, told to you as it unfolds. In the previous episode, I promised to introduce you to Crystal Canney. So right after the ad break, you'll hear our conversation about the nonprofit we founded, Retta Collective. It addresses cultural equality and justice through the lens of storytelling. The formation of this new organization has come about almost on its own. It still astounds me how people and activities simply align and happen when I hold my intentions and leave space for them to unfold. It shouldn't, to be honest. As a storyteller, I know we can and do write things into existence. A human's ability to think and then bring that thought into reality is, I think, one of the most powerful and underused elements of our existence on this planet. But that's an idea for another day. For now, please meet Crystal Canney.
You're listening to Raising Rebeca Books, the birth of a publishing house on the 1C Story Network. 1C is made possible in part by the support of the following sponsor.
Welcome to Raising Rebeca Books. I'm so glad to have you
exciting.
here.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I have told these fabulous listeners who are sticking with me on this insane journey, fueled mainly by caffeine and insanity, that you were coming. And so, yay, Crystal Canney is here. Yay!
I'm in the house.
But I would love to start with how we met, because I think it's weird. Is it weird? Have you met a lot of people the way that we met?
No. That was a first for me. It's like online dating over 40, right?
Yeah,
you
a little
just
bit.
don't do it.
Little bit. It was like when I first got the note. So you sent me a note on LinkedIn, and I normally don't read them. Not because I'm like that. I'm so big and bad and important that I don't read notes. There are a lot of people trying to sell you a lot of things on LinkedIn.
Very, very much so.
And I don't have an assistant. And so I just usually, like, maybe once a month or once every 2 months, it's like, let me go over there and see what's over there. And it just happened to be that the time that I went over there was the very day after you had messaged me, and you were at the very top of the list. You were right there.
Thankfully, I was not buried under a pile of offers and deals.
No, well, and yours was like, you didn't say this, but it was very clearly she's not trying to sell me anything, which was very nice. It was an actual note from an actual human actually wanting to communicate. That was really lovely. And you said, so what had made you reach out to me?
Well, I had been poking around in the publishing industry a little bit. I love to learn, and I saw that you had that history, and I said, wonder if this woman would just give me a few minutes of her time. She has quite an interesting history on LinkedIn, and if nothing comes of it, that's fine. But I love to talk to people, and I love to hear their stories and how things happen. And, sometimes it's karma, and sometimes it's just coincidence, and sometimes, there's nothing there at all. But as a former journalist, curious mind.
So, former journalist, I haven't told them all about your background.
Oh.
No, I have withheld
No big secrets
information.
there.
No, but it's very cool. You have an incredible background. So tell me, how did you start? You started in television journalism, is that right?
I did, but don't you want to tell the listeners that you actually responded to that email?
I did. She wanted me to talk to her about a specific publishing house that you could tell I had done some work with over the years. And I'm always about women helping women. So, or I am now. I mean, I was not always about that when I was young. Let's be real about that. I was very competitive. But these days it's much more about collaboration, not competition. And so I was like, absolutely, this woman needs some information and I've got it and I'll share it. And so I responded and said, yeah, let's get on the phone.
And it was fantastic. I was like, oh, interesting. One day and a yes.
Little did you know what you were getting roped into.
Hello, Cliff.
Yeah, when I hung up with you that day, I went into my husband and I said, I think I've just met a woman who's going to be very integral to what we're doing. And he said, oh, how long have you been talking to her?
10 minutes.
The past 30 minutes, maybe. I don't know. But you just know sometimes, right?
Yes, you
You're like,
do. Yes, you do.
this is somebody who's supposed to be here. And now we just have to figure out what here looks like. So then you came to Naples and we
Hmm.
sat down for our marathon 3-hour lunch. And really I had Googled you in between the phone
Hmm.
call and the lunch. And that's when I found out
Good.
you had, right? um,
Thankfully, not a
yeah.
serious stalker of any kind.
I mean, just a little. But that's when I found out truly that you had such an incredible background. And I was like, this is an incredibly cool cat of what she's done with her life. I really kind of came away from it going, I'm not really sure why she reached out to me because I'm not quite at that level, but okay, that's that's fantastic.
Oh, you are being very, very bashful on that. You
I don't know
most
about that.
certainly are.
So you
Uh,
started TV journalism, right?
yeah, sure. And it was telling stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a long time that was my passion in video and
Mm-hmm.
in the broadcast medium. But we were, sold to a company that at one point I just didn't agree with their philosophy of news, and I left to be the communications director for a governor. But while I did it, I loved it, and the mission statement around Retta Collective is everything I believed in and have believed in for a very long time. It's about that opportunity to give people who don't have a chance a voice,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I,
That might never be heard.
I don't want to gloss over that you said, so I just went to be communications director for a governor.
Oh,
Like
sorry.
everybody just does that. I
Well,
just
let me explain that. So when I was growing up in Bangor, Maine, we used to go to a restaurant called Mama Baldacci's every night, every
Mhm.
Friday night. Not every night. God help me, it was Italian. That would have been really bad. But every Friday night, and it was the future governor's restaurant, and his whole family worked there. So while yes, I went to work for a governor, and that carries with it an incredible responsibility if you do it right.
Mhm.
It was also someone I had kind of grown up with. So it wasn't an intimidating thing at all. I watched him serve me, manicotti for about 10 years. And it was delicious. And he was a good man. And our company had, our newsroom had just been sold. And I worked in 3 different markets, but that was the last one that I worked in Portland, Maine. And I was ready. And he had approached me before, and I wasn't ready. And you do have to take when you leave journalism, I was a purist.
Mm.
I held it very dear. I felt it was a huge responsibility. But when you make that jump, you become a PR person, which is a whole different ball.
Mhm. Mhm. And then you also went to DC, right?
Yeah. So I left the governor's office. Right in the middle of the recession. So
Always
I
a good
know.
time to give up a job.
Yeah. I'm like, now's the time to start a company, never having been a businesswoman, right in the middle of a recession with a secure job for 4 years. But here's the deal about who I am. And that is, I could have stayed there for another 4 years. He promoted me to the associate commissioner of finance. And he said, you know what? He said, policy. And he
Mhm.
said, we have people who know numbers. He said, I need you to run these policy initiatives. So I did.
Mm.
And then I decided once we were done, there wasn't a lot left to do. And you do not want to be the last one to turn off the lights in politics.
That
You
is true.
really don't. And I had accomplished what he asked me to accomplish. So I said, okay, what's next? Which is something that I do a lot. How
Mhm.
can I learn? How can I grow? How can I, formulate what I want for my life? And I started my own company in the middle of a recession. It was going great. And Angus King, who's now a US Senator, I had always wanted to work with him. He preceded Baldacci. No, he came after Baldacci. And so he asked me to do his campaign. And I had started doing campaigns at that point in my company.
Mhm.
So I did. Then he said, can you come to Washington and start the communication shop for a year? I had a daughter at home, a husband at home. Said only if I can fly home on the weekends, which I did, and it worked. But I said 1 year.
Mm.
And then I started my second company.
Mm. And
So
then so how long had you and that's how long had you had the company when you and I met?
we started in 20. Let's see, Angus was 20, like 2013, 2014,
Yeah, about
2014.
a decade.
So a while, a decade.
Mhm.
Yeah, a
Mhm.
decade. So,
So when you came down, what you did not know was going on in my life is that was what I've shared on the previous episode about how there had been months of people saying you really should think about doing this as a nonprofit, and me saying I really should not. Thank you very much for that input.
yes, thank you, no.
Because I have run, I had, that was, a job of mine not so many years ago of I ran
Mhm,
a pretty major nonprofit down here. And it's just running a nonprofit is requires a certain mindset. And it is not a mindset of a
mhm,
for-profit business owner. And prior to running that nonprofit, I had only started and run my own nonprofits, or my own for-profits, and I had only worked in major for-profits. And I grew up with parents who were in the nonprofit sector my entire life. So I
mhm.
knew it from that standpoint, but not from actually being the president of a nonprofit. And it's just different. It's a different skill set. It really is to run a nonprofit. And I knew when that my time there was over, I never wanted to do it ever again.
There are some things that you just know. Now, as part of the Night Canny Group, which is my company, I've been the executive director and still the executive director of Protect Maine's Fishing Heritage Foundation, and I helped to sell a mountain under at Saddleback in Maine under a foundation, and I was the
Mhm.
executive director there as well, Saddleback Mountain Foundation. And it's different, and I will tell you, I understand that transition is hard. It is hard. It is a whole different way of dealing with people, and I'm really looking forward to putting my skills to work
I love
in a
when you
way.
said you enjoy your work with the nonprofit. I was like,
Oh,
"Oh, I have found the
I
woman."
I do because I really feel, with people in particular, everybody's got a different motivation, everybody's got a different story, and I love listening. And you have to
Mhm.
be a good listener if you want to survive in a nonprofit.
That is very true. And I think it's, in the for-profit world, I'm so just accustomed to I make the thing, I sell the thing, I make the thing, I sell the thing. And so the relationships are with the creators of the things.
Right.
And that's great, but that's just a different mindset than donor cultivation and grant writing and things like that. It's just different. They're both great. I'm just not good at the one. Let's just be real about that. But I want to be very clear because I think it could get very confusing for people very quickly. Of
Mhm.
Rebecca Books is the books division of the 1C Story Network, and the 1C Story Network is a for-profit company. But what we're talking about today is a wholly separate company that is a nonprofit that is called Retta Collective. And the Retta Collective has its own mission, which is, do you have it? I have it in front of me. Do you have the mission?
I have it right here
Of
in
course
old
you
school
do.
form
Of
and
course you do.
printed out. Well, actually, it's funny that you say that. It's like I look at this mission statement a lot.
I do too. It's
I
taped to my
feel
computer.
so much ownership and pride in exactly what we're trying to do, and we haven't even
Mhm.
started yet, really. We're in the
Mhm.
process of getting set up, but, boy, it's everything. My husband used to say to me, "Get off the soapbox." Oh my god, where's your
Mm.
soapbox? 'Cause I
Mhm.
always have a lot to say. But this mission statement is every little soapbox I've dragged out for
Me too.
years.
Me too. And it's before you read it for everybody, I just want them to know you texted me one day and you texted me the initial mission statement. And I don't know what prompted it. I have no idea what was going on, but you just texted me a mission statement. And I was like, okay, we're doing a mission statement now. And so I had like, I think 2 words that I said, what about this word instead of this word? And you were like, yep, I like those words too. And I think in a matter of like 5 minutes, we both were like, that's it. That's exactly what
Mhm.
we mean. And we both feel so much rightness about this is what we want to be a part of. It's the
Mhm.
easiest thing I think that's come together for me in a long time. I was just like, did we just make a whole mission
Oh,
statement in 5 minutes?
me too. I mean, I feel exactly the same way. This is an interesting thing. This conversation that started on a LinkedIn message and every conversation after, and I'm sure everything will not be easy
True,
because
true,
nothing in
true.
life ever is. We're going to hit road bumps or whatever, and that's fine
Mhm.
because this mission statement is everything.
Mhm.
And because we both believe in it, whatever the road bumps are, we'll work around it
Yeah,
because we're going to get it done.
exactly, exactly. Okay, so with all that, I hope we haven't built
Ooh,
it up too much. Tell them the mission statement.
here it comes. Okay. The Retta Collective addresses cultural equality and justice through the lens of storytelling. Women, minorities, and rural communities deserve an enhanced voice in the multimedia landscape as stakeholders, witnesses, and agents of change. The Retta Collective accomplishes this through a diverse set of storytelling platforms, including publishing, film, TV, podcasting, educational opportunities, and digital products. What could be better than
Oh,
that?
it's such a killer. Everything is in there and it's still so succinct. And it's just everything is in there because the part of it, I'll have to confess, the part of it that I loved was you added the rural communities part. And I
Mhm.
think, that's me. I grew up on a farm and I'm from rural community. I'm as country girl as it gets from Tennessee. Not that I live there anymore right now, but still that's those are my people, as we say back on the farm. And I think that that informs who I am, therefore it informs everything that I do. But I think because I live day in and day out in this very large media landscape, even I start to take it for granted and start to think, well, if you want a voice, then you can go out there and get one. And I forget, nope, we get marginalized all the time. I mean, it's like the last person that you can really use a complete stereotype about in media is a Southern person. They're going
Mhm.
to be stupid. They're going to be
Mhm.
backward. They're
Mhm.
going to talk without any level of, as if they've never picked up a book, which is simply not the truth of who people, rural people in the South, anyway, I can speak to those because I am one. It's not who they are. There's a lot of wisdom in the rural South, and there's a lot of being overlooked, especially as a female in the rural South. And so I really appreciated that idea of rather than fly over our rural communities and ignore the rich storytelling that is in rural communities and the wisdom that is embedded in those communities and has been generation after generation, that we're instead going to focus on those communities of tell us your stories, tell us your wisdom, and then let's figure out a way to bring those stories and that wisdom to a larger audience,
Mhm.
depending on what media platform makes sense for that. I really appreciated that you added that audience into women and minorities, because it's so, I was like, she gets it, she knows what it's about.
Well, the rural communities piece speaks to me as well, Rebecca, because Maine is highly rural. When you talk to people from away, as we like to say, before I moved to Florida, thank you, thank you. But they we're at the end of the Maine is at the end of the pipeline.
Mhm.
People usually think it ends at Boston, you know? When you say northern Maine and they're only halfway up the state, when they come to Maine, they're like, "Oh, we're in northern Maine," and you're only halfway into the state. It's like, "No, you've got another 5 hours to go," you know? But there's so much rich history everywhere in rural communities, whether it's Maine or the South or, and giving voice and allowing people to have voice from those communities makes us all better.
Yes. Yeah. It's like acknowledging that we're an entire large country. We don't just
Yeah.
live in cities. What do you know? Who
Shocking news. It's breaking here first with Rebecca Seitz.
knew? Yeah, I just really appreciated that you added that part to it
Thank
because I
you.
think it's much needed. And I also love, so we should explain how these two entities can
Mhm.
work together, because again, these are separate. Retta Collective is not a part
Correct.
of the One C Story Network. It is separate. So why are we talking about Retta Collective on a podcast about Raising Rebecca Books? You want to get into that?
Well, as I understand it, as we're going forward from our mission statement, we will be funding projects that meet our mission statement,
Hmm.
regardless of what they are and where they come from. And so I'm looking forward to finding those voices and helping to fund those projects. And I'm sure Rebecca Books is going to fit into that. And I'm happy about it. I'm
Yeah.
pleased.
I
Ready,
think
set, go.
there's I think there will be, I hope there will be a lot of overlap between the book projects, film projects, podcast projects, what we're
Mhm.
doing, the media we're creating inside the One C Story Network, and the media that Retta Collective is starting up to support. Now, to be clear, I don't think there's going to be 100% crossover because Retta Collective has educational opportunities in its
Mhm.
mission, and 1C doesn't really exist to educate people. We exist to create media. But I can envision where, if there's a writer or a story coming, let's say from a rural community, and we're wanting to publish that book and then flip that book into a film, all of that costs a lot of money for us to do. And Rebecca Books is a startup as well. And 1C itself is only, it's not even 5 years old yet. And so I can see how individuals who also want to support the creation of that kind of media, having the ability to go to a nonprofit and make donations toward the creation of that kind of media can be
Mhm.
helpful because Retta has that easy entry into 1C to say, we want to support this kind of media that you're making as well. What about this book? What about this film? What about this TV? And we're coming with some of the financial support for it. So I think there can be a lot of overlap between what we're doing together, even though they're two very, very separate things and engaged in some separate things like educational opportunities.
Mhm.
Um, I think workshops and conferences and things like that, I think that's happening in Retta Collective to help educate people as to how the industry works, how to write better, how to be producers and publishers, and all that fun stuff, which we don't do inside 1C. That's not going to happen over here.
And there's some really interesting opportunities. So I was traveling down the coast for a variety of reasons in the last week, and we'll leave it at that. And I'm looking at some of the communities.
Hmm.
Right, Vero Beach is a very nice community. Naples, Florida is a very nice community. And it's not that they're not nice communities in some of the areas, but they are challenged communities.
Hmm.
And I could see, and I've not discussed this with anyone yet. So forgive me if I'm winging this at you out of the
You're fine.
blue,
You're
but
fine.
there's a great organization called the Telling Room
Hmm.
in Maine. And I could see a replication of that down here where
Hmm.
we engage students and
Mm.
help them tell their stories and then hold a big event at the end of the year so people can see just how diverse this world is. It's very comfortable for a lot of people just to stay in their community, and one thing I love to do is get out into either a more rural or a more economically challenged community and see what's going on.
Hmm.
So that really excites me. Now, is there a plan? Not yet.
Working on
but
it.
but every single day I'm thinking about it. And
Well, and it should be, let's see, by the time this episode airs, which is not the day that we're recording this, even right now, I think you can go to rettacollective.org and there's a landing page. But I
yes.
know that behind the scenes, there's a woman who's working on, there's a woman. Did y'all catch that? There's a
Yeah.
woman who's working on the website as well. So there will be much more, lots of
Oh,
layers of information on that website eventually.
and there's a woman attorney, also a woman
Oh, that's right.
attorney, who's setting this up for us, which is very exciting. She's lovely to work with, and seems to be like it's going forward just fine.
I love that we're able to find so many women to work. It kind of dispels that myth of, well, I would hire a woman or I would hire a minority if there just was one to hire. And it's like, no, there is. You just sometimes have to look a little bit harder. It's fine.
It's talk to some people. That
Right?
also helps. Just talk to people.
Around. Maybe don't go with the guy that's on the billboard. Maybe don't do
Yeah,
that.
that's
Okay,
true.
so in Retta Collective, so how do you see that with donors? How do you see that working with donors? Or are you still fleshing that out?
I'm fleshing it out. I have a list of ideas in terms of events that we will hold.
Hmm.
And, hopefully we'll have film that we can not film anymore, digital.
Right?
Dating myself, digital works that we can, host events around so that the broader community can get a sense of what we're doing. And so that is still being fleshed out, but I have started the list.
Okay, so if somebody, we'll put this in the show notes, the answer you're about to give to me, but if somebody at the moment, because Retta Collective, the website and everything is still being fleshed out, how does somebody get in touch if they are like, absolutely, I want to support the creation of these stories, or I have story ideas, or I have thoughts I want to share? How do they get in touch with you?
Do you want my number?
That is why you are the executive director and not
Yes,
me.
yes, yes. I see how
How
this
about
is
an
going.
email? Let's see. Well, you'll have your Crystal at rettacollective.org.
Yep,
Is that what it's going to be? Crystal at rettacollective.org.
I believe it is. Yes, I think we're working on setting that up.
I'm just very it. I've said this a lot on this podcast, but I'll say it again. This whole concept of not pushing things into existence and letting things happen. These are the kinds of relationships, these are the kinds of business developments that happen when I just keep my hands off the wheel. I have us a destination. I've pointed the car toward the destination, but I don't have to be completely in control of things because there's no way on God's green earth that I ever would have known to even approach you. It was more just, I knew we needed to have something like this, but I knew I wasn't the one. And eventually there would be a one. The right one would come along,
Mhm.
and that would signify, okay, that you need to pay attention to that goal now. And
Mhm.
that's the person that's going to be able to move it forward. You need to have conversation with that person. It's just such a different way of being. I'm still not great at it, but I love it.
It's really interesting because I share your amazement with that. I'm political. I was a political animal. I was a journalist, so
Hmm.
aggressive by the very nature of survival, pretty much, especially in the political world. And this, I can't even tell you. Just when I saw your name and I saw it, it's like, you know what? This is somebody I need to talk to, and it was
Hmm.
so organic and
Hmm.
authentic that I knew it was right. And sometimes, this is a lesson that's taken me a while to learn. Sometimes you need to let things breathe a little bit
Hmm.
to end up where you need to end up. And I'm a full believer in that now. I really am.
Very true. I was talking to another publisher earlier today, a woman publisher, because we collaborate. That's what we do.
Oh,
And
collaborate. Yes.
imagine we don't compete, we collaborate. And she put it so well. She said, she just celebrated her 60th birthday, and she said, "I have found in my career that I'm not quoting her. I'm paraphrasing, but she said I found in my career that me continually calling someone and checking up on something usually doesn't get it done any more quickly than it would have been done anyway.
Mhm.
And if it does, it probably got it done with the wrong energy." And I thought, how many times in my life have I prodded and pushed and poked and have you gotten to this yet? Have you gotten to this yet? I need you to get to this yet, instead of letting things have the energy that they have and the timeline that they have and going over here and doing something else while I wait on something to come to fruition.
Mhm.
It's a very different way of being for somebody like me who's, pushed things into existence the first 40 years of my life. But I'm going to keep singing it. I will keep beating this drum. It is a much better way of being to just let things happen.
And I think a much healthier way.
Mhm. Mhm.
They say cortisol and stress is not good for you.
Right?
So
I read somewhere that when you have an anger episode, not that we're talking about anger, we're talking about stress, but when you have an anger episode, that it takes like 22 to 24 hours for those anger hormones, the cortisol, to leave your body.
yeah,
That's
not good.
crazy.
Not good.
Uh,
Not good at all.
I feel like I probably need to get a better handle on my temper. That
Well, I
can't be
haven't seen it
healthy.
yet, but I don't look forward to it
Only
either.
the people in my house really ever
Oh,
see
okay.
it. They
Always take it out close on those
Yeah.
closest to you, I
She
guess.
tends to not get outside my front door. I keep her right here in the house.
Your husband is so fortunate.
He's such a good man. He is such a good man. But I think that's another thing that's come with age is there's like this calculation that happens in my brain now of, is it really worth the energy it's going to take to let myself get angry? Like, do I really have the energy to do this right now?
Mhm.
And most of the time the answer is no. It's just never mind. I just won't think about that anymore right now because I don't have the energy to spend on it anymore. I'm not 22.
And it's often counterproductive. So, why do that?
It is. I
Why
do
not just move
I
on?
will say I do tend to get, um, not as easily as I used to, but something that can get me angry, more easily than other things is still when I see the failing up that is allowed by males in our industry. That I look at them and they're in leadership positions and C-suite positions, not because there's anything in their resume that shows that they should be in that position, but because it's a white man. So the next step was to make him this or make him that. And it's so frustrating because it's like, I guess if everybody was allowed to fail up in that way, I wouldn't have
It
such a
would be
problem
one
with it.
thing.
Right. But
Yeah.
it
Yep.
tends to, 95% of the time, at least in what I observe, there's only one type of human that's allowed to fail up, and it is frustrating beyond belief. I'm getting angry thinking about it, so we're not gonna think about it anymore.
Well, stop that. But you touch on a really good point because without naming any names, but in the political world, I have had
Mhm.
people say to me, um, so and so has such a nice way about her. She just goes along, and you don't want to be seen as too aggressive, and you don't want to be seen as shrill, and
Shrill.
you don't. Well, I'm sorry. Do I have a voice and my opinion differs from yours? Is that what we're talking about here? I actually remember being in a car when this conversation went on for 15 minutes with this particular elected. I said it it was being framed in the context of, you know, just a general conversation. I said, "Well, I think you're talking about me, right? Is that what you're trying to tell me?"
It's me.
Oh,
Hi, I'm the
yeah,
problem. It's me.
exactly. You wonder why Taylor Swift's so possible. She
Right.
nailed it.
She did. She did.
Exactly right. It's me. And oh, no, 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 because the person wasn't person enough to admit what they were trying to say. They just wanted it to sink in that you want to be softer. You want to be not so aggressive. You don't want to be so loud. You can have an opinion, but let's sideline that opinion if, I'm around
Mm,
other people that might not agree with you. And it's like, that's really tough. And I have talked to my daughter a lot about this. Be an owner, don't be an
mhm,
employee eventually. you know
mhm,
be your own boss, help other people along the way, lift that hand, and give someone
mhm,
a hand.
mhm,
Kindness is everything.
mhm.
So yeah, I it
Did you get
happened
the
over and
don't
over
be
and
in
again.
did you get the don't be intimidating line? I get
Oh,
that a lot.
gotten it for years. But
Oh,
here's I mean, my God, a capital I neon over my head,
well, and here's the thing.
intimidating.
Have you ever in your life tried to be intimidating? Like, was that on purpose?
Not intentionally, but
No, like, why
I've
don't
had
you
an opinion, so I guess I am.
exactly. It's like, well, I think they're just intimidated. And it's like, well, first of all, that's not my problem. You chose to feel that way. I don't choose your feelings. You choose your feelings.
Mhm,
But second of all, why are you intimidated? Because I waited until I knew what I was talking about to open my mouth. I'm pretty sure you should do that too. Why are you intimidated when you encounter that? And why is that only that descriptor? Why is that continually applied to women who are leaders all the time? Because the message, at least the message that I receive over and over and over was, oh, well, that means I need to make myself smaller. So I'm not intimidating. And it took me a long time to realize, no, if you deserve to be where you are and I deserve to be where I am, then neither one of us should be intimidated. We should just be collaborating. Now, if I misspeak or something like that, absolutely tell me I need to dial it down or whatever.
100%,
But this
100%.
idea of I'm intimidating because I exist,
Yeah,
what do you want me to do with that? How that I can't exist? What does that
right.
mean? I've never I would
No,
rather
no, you can exist, but only in the context of their comfort.
yes. What is up with that? No. See, this is why we have Retta Collective. It's like, no, you exist. Come here, show up, exist how you are. And in this space, that will be welcomed and celebrated and elevated. It just makes me so excited because it's like, no, I'm so over this idea of no, you need to be quiet and you need to sit down
Mhm,
and you need to be less and you need to make it easy for the person who's in charge, you need to make it easy for me to let you in the room. When it's
mhm.
like, maybe not. Maybe we just let you in the room. Maybe you should have been in the room all along and we should listen to whatever story it is you're telling us.
And
I
it was so fascinating to me, like, as a reporter, how dare you ask that question?
mm,
Well, that's what I do. And
right.
I'm a good reporter, so I'm probably going to ask questions that you may think are offensive
Mhm.
because I need to dig underneath.
Mhm.
Now, that's the nature of the job.
Mhm.
That was the nature of the job. But I got that a lot when I was a reporter. I can't believe you asked that question. How dare did you follow up, with that? In fact, it was so interesting to me. One of the last experiences I had in Maine, a reporter from a smaller television station came to talk to me for one of the nonprofits. And they said, it was a woman. And she said to me, she said, "Is it okay if I ask you this question?"
Oh.
Now, my job was to spout out a certain answer,
Mhm.
but I couldn't do it. I said, "Wait a minute. turned the camera off, took her aside, and I said, "Why are you asking me if you can ask a question? This is what you do." I said, "Get
Mm.
in there. It's my job to be able to respond correctly.
Mhm.
But you need to ask the question." But it was mind blowing to me because I never operated like that. I felt, that was my job. That was my responsibility to the public, was to ask the tough questions. And I certainly never asked anyone for permission to ask a question.
Yeah, I think it's maybe hopefully it's specific to our generation. I don't know. Younger listeners will have to let me know. But I think this idea of being so grateful for this is telling you from my perspective,
Mhm,
being so grateful to have found my way into the room and to the table. And I
mhm,
was so scared to do something that would affirm what I knew was the idea of a lot of the men in there, which is I didn't belong there in the first place because I was a woman and I'm one of those women that um looks like a girly sometimes because I have naturally curly hair and that sort of thing. And I was so concerned with please don't kick me out of here and please take me seriously. And when you have all of those ideas going through your mind, it is very hard to show up and just do the job.
Well,
And
then we have a lot of work to do, Rebecca.
it's
It's this generation that's still asking those questions.
I think some of them do. I think because it's so ingrained in the way of being in the workforce, because the workforce, while there are, I think the workforce is over half female now, which is amazing, but we're all still operating in this unspoken mindset of the other. We are the other when we come into the room. We're not the norm because the norm would be the male that's in the room. And I think we just have to get out of that mindset. And it brings me back to Retta Collective and 1C and Rebecca Books
Mhm,
of I think the more that we approach people in those rooms, women, minorities, rural community members who are in those rooms, as if it is a given and normal that they're there, just as given and normal that they're there as the ones who were originally in the room, and we tell those stories and we give those people a presence and an identity in our media landscape, the more I think we do away with this idea that anybody other than a white male is other in that
mhm.
space. You know,
I'm
it's
all in.
right.
You said it so well. I mean, that's it. That's it right there. It's elevating the voices of the people who haven't had a voice.
Yeah. And I want to be clear. I love white males. I'm married to one. He's fantastic. And I gave birth to one and raised one. I love them. They're great. There's this weird thing that happens in the conversation when we have these conversations where some white males start feeling as if we're lessening their value when we're
Mhm.
simply equating their value to everyone else. It's a
That's
very
really
odd
important
phenomenon
point.
that
Mhm.
happens. I just want to be clear. I'm not saying white men don't have value or are less valuable than anything else or any of that, less worthy or any of that. It's just there's a whole world of people out there that haven't had a presence and a representation and a voice who also live on this planet and also have stories. And those stories need to be shared. That's all I'm saying. That's it.
That's it. It's all I'm talking about.
That's all I'm talking about. Anyway, well, thank you for did we say
Thank you.
something about a soapbox a second ago? Man, I get up on
Yeah,
one. I'm gonna
yeah.
pass the
I see
plate.
you have your own soapbox, which you take out from time to time. It's a good thing to have a soapbox.
I
It's
do
a
have
good
one.
thing.
And now we're gonna pass the plate. Make your donations to Retta Collective.
Yeah, that's right. Donate now.
Seriously, that we joke about that, but Retta Collective will exist, at the pleasure of donors. I mean,
That's
it's a
correct.
nonprofit. It's 100% a nonprofit. So, if you have any questions about it, again, we're going to put Crystal's email address in the show notes. You can email Crystal at rettacollective.org. I'm not going to put her phone number in the show notes because then you'll get spammed. Um,
Oh, I get spam anyway. If I get one donor out of 10 calls, I'm happy. So go ahead.
all right, I'm putting her phone number in the show notes.
It's fine. Just do it.
You just wait until the crazies come out of the woodwork. You're going to be like, please, please, could we remove my number from the show notes?
We'll see, but it's okay. It's a good cause.
Hey, you
Well
know what?
intended.
That one person might reach out to you on LinkedIn
That's
and
right. That's right. The one person. Listen, go through a campaign or two where you have the opposition spamming your phone so you can't do your job for the
Oh
candidate.
my gosh, I hadn't even
So,
thought about that.
oh yeah. Oh, this will be nothing.
Oh, I love that. Oh, we so have the right person running Retta Collective. Thank you for taking the time to come on here. I know you're busy getting the thing up and
Pleasure.
running. I just really wanted people to understand that while it's not the same company, the two companies are collaborating and working together when there's crossover between what we're working on. And there is a lot of crossover between what we're working on. Anything else? Let me make space for you to say anything else I haven't covered.
No, I'm just thrilled, happy, content. I know it's the right thing. That's
Well,
it.
it better be, or you're really
Well,
going
if
to regret that note that you sent me.
no, I know this. I know this in my bones. My grandmother would say, I know this in my bones. And I
Mm.
know this in my bones.
I think
This
we
is
have
great.
I think we have to end there because ending on a grandmother quote, yeah, that's a right way to end a Rebecca Books podcast episode right there. A grandmother quote. Okay, you guys, check the show notes. Get in touch with Crystal. Help support the projects. Thank you, Crystal.
Take care.
You heard her, friend. Give Crystal a call or shoot her an email. She would love to hear from you. I'm Rebecca Seitz. Thank you for coming along on this journey with me.
You've been listening to Raising Rebeca Books, the birth of a publishing house from the 1C Story Network. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts and learn more at RebecaBooks.com. That's REBECA books.com.
The 1C Story Network, for the love of stories.